All right, let's dive right into this one. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we are going to investigate one of the most chilling, perfectly preserved mysteries of the high seas. We're looking at a story that has absolutely baffled historians, scientists, and maritime experts for well over a century. It's a real-life puzzle that genuinely has all the terrifying elements of a psychological thriller, but it relies entirely on just a few deeply unsettling historical facts. We are, of course, talking about the legendary mystery of the Mary Celeste, and specifically trying to figure out why its entire crew disappeared so incredibly suddenly.
So I want you to put yourself in this very specific scenario for a second. What would you do if you were sailing across the vast, open Atlantic and you stumbled upon a literal ghost ship floating right in the middle of the ocean? Imagine pulling up alongside a vessel that looks completely functional. The sails are rigged, the hull is totally sound, but as you call out across the water, you're met with just absolute deafening silence. There's no one at the wheel, there's no one on the deck. It's a vessel entirely devoid of human life. This isn't some hypothetical thought experiment, guys. This is exactly what happened in the winter of 1872.
Section 1. A ship adrift.
Okay, so we're dealing with a remarkably short window of time here. In 1872, the merchant ship Mary Celeste departed from New York, and its final destination was set for Italy. It was a completely standard, routine transatlantic route. But then, fast forward just a tiny bit to December 4th, 1872, another ship called the Dei Grazia actually spots the Mary Celeste out in the unforgiving Atlantic Ocean. But the Mary Celeste wasn't sailing with any sort of purpose. She was just drifting, completely alone. And the sheer suddenness of this event is really what anchors our entire mystery today. Between departing New York and that fateful day in December, something incredibly abrupt and completely unexplainable happened out there on the open water.
Section 2. The passengers and cargo.
Now, to figure out why they vanished so suddenly, we have to look at who was actually on board. This wasn't just some faceless crew of rough sailors. The Mary Celeste was commanded by Captain Benjamin Briggs, and traveling right alongside him on this tough voyage across the ocean were his wife, his young daughter, as well as several really experienced crew members. I want you to really stop and think about that family aspect for a second. A captain, his wife, and their young child. That completely changes the dynamic of the disappearance, doesn't it? It makes the sudden vanishing feel incredibly personal and just deeply tragic. Whatever happened out there to make them abandon ship so suddenly, it happened to a family.
And then we have to look down into the ship's hold. The Mary Celeste was transporting a very specific type of cargo, industrial alcohol. Now I want you to keep this crucial detail tucked in the back of your mind. They were floating on top of a massive quantity of highly volatile, potentially very dangerous liquid. As we're going to see in just a minute, this single line on the ship's manifest turns out to be a massive clue in our investigation into why the ship was abandoned with such terrifying speed.
Section 3. The mystery scene. This right here brilliantly illustrates the core paradox of our explainer today. The Mary Celeste was not sunk. She wasn't completely destroyed. In fact, if you went inside, her interior held perfectly ample supplies of food and water. And remember that highly volatile cargo of industrial alcohol? It was still safely on board. But despite the ship being perfectly habitable and well supplied, there were absolutely zero people. And perhaps most chillingly of all, zero bodies were ever discovered. There were no signs of a struggle, no starvation, no catastrophic shipwreck. Every single human being simply vanished without a trace, very suddenly leaving a perfectly intact floating haven behind.
Section 4. Theories of disappearance.
So it all literally boils down to this one question. Why abandon a perfectly good ship? Put yourself in the shoes of Captain Benjamin Briggs for a minute. You're an experienced, highly respected mariner. You literally have your beloved wife and your young daughter on board with you. Your ship is structurally sound. You've got plenty of food and water to survive for months. What kind of terrifying, unthinkable, and sudden event could possibly compel you to order a total and immediate evacuation into the unforgiving, deadly open ocean? It defies absolutely all maritime logic.
So the really crucial point is how we interpret the very limited, honestly maddening evidence left behind. Historians generally point to two main theories to explain this absolutely sudden disappearance. Theory number 1 connects right back to that cargo manifest we talked about, the industrial alcohol. The thought here is that a minor explosion, or honestly, perhaps just the intense, suffocating fear of an impending explosion from all those invisible fumes, caused the captain to just panic. In a really desperate bid for safety, he might have ordered everyone off the ship temporarily. They might have tied a line to a lifeboat, just waiting for the ship to air out.
only for that fragile line to snap, completely stranding them in the wake of their own perfectly good vessel. Theory number 2, on the other hand, looks at environmental and mechanical factors. It suggests that a severe storm, or maybe a mechanical issue related to how the cargo was actually sitting, basically tricked the captain's senses. In the sheer, blind chaos of a terrifying moment at sea, Captain Briggs might have made a fatal miscalculation. He may have falsely believed the Mary Celeste was taking on water and was in imminent deadly peril, which would force a tragic, totally sudden evacuation from a ship that was, in reality, perfectly fine. Both of these theories rely on a sudden panic, right? A split-second, irreversible decision that ultimately sealed the terrifying fate of the family and the crew.
Section 5. An unsolved enigma. We have to end today on a pretty profound realization. The Mary Celeste continued to be one of the great mysteries of maritime history, because the absolute truth is a definitive explanation for what actually happened out there in the cold Atlantic was never discovered. It was never proven. The theories of sudden explosions and terrifying storms make total logical sense, but without absolute proof and without a single survivor to tell the harrowing tale of why they left so suddenly, we're left only with the eerie silence of an empty deck. It really forces you to wonder, doesn't it? What other secrets are buried out there in the deep, just waiting for a passing ship to stumble upon them? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and definitely keep questioning the unknown.